The movie opens with an elite squad known as the Phoenix Team infiltrating a covert tunnel on a high-stakes mission. Their objective is to breach the headquarters of a notorious arms trafficking syndicate in Costa Verde. After swiftly neutralizing a guard, they gain access to the security system, manipulating it to their advantage. Meanwhile, outside the tunnel, two snipers, Brandon and Zandy, remain on standby, awaiting the signal from their teammates. Once the signal is received, they carefully select their targets and prepare to strike. As the Phoenix Team emerges from the tunnel, they execute their plan with precision, taking down enemies one by one without raising alarm. However, one of the syndicate's men quickly realizes the compound is under attack. He rushes to alert his leader, Kovalev, a ruthless mafia boss. Realizing the severity of the situation, Kovalev fires multiple rounds into the air, triggering an alarm to rally his forces. Chaos erupts as his men scramble into position, engaging in a violent firefight with the Phoenix Team. Meanwhile, two of Kovalev's sharpshooters target Brandon and Zandy from a distance. However, Zandy spots them just in time, and he and Brandon coordinate to eliminate the threat. As the battle intensifies, Kovalev and one of his remaining lieutenants attempt to reposition while returning fire. Desperate, Kovalev calls his secret ally, the Prime Minister, seeking immediate reinforcements. To his dismay, the Prime Minister informs him that backup will take at least 1 to 2 hours to arrive. Realizing the dire circumstances, Kovalev unleashes a powerful weapon developed by his men, a last resort device capable of mass destruction. Soon, the Phoenix Team gains the upper hand, surrounding Kovalev and his last remaining soldier. Defiant, Kovalev declares his intention to obliterate everyone in the room. Suddenly, a massive shockwave surges through the compound, knocking everyone to the ground, including Kovalev and his men. The scene then flashes back to 2 days earlier. A sleek dragonfly-like aircraft descends onto Costa Verde's barren terrain. Emerging from the aircraft is Brandon, who has arrived to assist with the mission. At the landing site, a commander named Modus welcomes Brandon, expressing gratitude for his participation. Modus acknowledges Brandon's exceptional sniping skills and believes he will be an invaluable asset to their team. As Brandon is escorted to the base, a soldier named Nova shares a tragic story about his homeland. He reveals that his uncle, now the country's prime minister, betrayed and murdered his father, the nation's former leader. Teaming up with a Russian mafia lord, his uncle helped develop advanced weaponry that could potentially be used to invade other nations. Upon reaching the base, Brandon reunites with an old ally, Zero, a CIA director. Zero explains that Brandon has been recruited to aid in capturing Kovalev, a Russian mafia leader notorious for supplying illegal arms to America's adversaries. Kovalev's recent partnership with the Prime Minister has only amplified his power, making him an even greater threat. Zero proceeds to introduce Brandon to the rest of the team, emphasizing that they must work as one to take down Kovalev. Shortly after, Modus introduces Zandy, a talented but inexperienced marksman who has yet to take a life. With the introductions complete, training commences, simulating real combat scenarios. Under Brandon's guidance, Zandy hones his shooting skills, gradually improving his precision. Following the session, Zandy approaches Brandon with a question. What is the hardest part of being a sniper? Brandon replies that the first kill is the most difficult, as it forces one to confront the gravity of taking a life. Their discussion then shifts to the layout of the compound they will infiltrate. Meanwhile, Modus and his deputy carefully outline the mission, assigning specific tasks to each soldier. Proud of their team, Modus dubs their unit Phoenix. Later that evening, the troops gather for dinner and share stories. One soldier asks Modus about the first person he recruited. Modus reveals that it was his deputy, Angel, and recounts her extraordinary bravery. Despite being outnumbered and stabbed a dozen times, she fought back and emerged victorious. Impressed, the troops encourage Angel to show them her scars, which she does with humility. Brandon then strikes up a conversation with two soldiers who are often seen together. Curious about their relationship, he asks if they are a couple. They clarify that they are siblings, not partners. When Brandon inquires about their combat style, they confirm that they wield axes in battle. Known as twin axes, they rely on their weapons as a last resort in close combat. The next day, Zero notices Angel sketching something. When he asks about it, she reveals that she is drawing for her daughter, whom she hasn't seen in a long time. Later, Modus gathers the troops and delivers a motivational speech, emphasizing the importance of their mission. He stresses that their primary goal is to capture Kovalev alive so he can stand trial and expose the Prime Minister's crimes. However, if necessary, they have permission to eliminate him. That night, Modus checks on Zandy's progress. Given his inexperience, he asks Brandon if Zandy is ready to compete as a sniper. Brandon responds that he will put Zandy to the test that evening. If Zandy fails, he will be removed from the mission. Later, Brandon leads Zandy to a secluded area and instructs him to shoot a man smoking outside a nearby house. Zandy hesitates, struggling with the morality of killing someone without reason. However, Brandon insists that hesitation has no place in their profession. Despite his inner turmoil, Zandy follows orders and pulls the trigger. However, the gun fires blanks. Confused and apprehensive, Zandy questions Brandon's true intentions. Brandon then reveals that the exercise was a psychological test. If Zandy had refused to shoot, he would have failed and been excluded from the mission. Brandon recounts how he once failed a similar test, which cost him an additional 2 years of military training. Fortunately, Zandy passed. The next day, the entire Phoenix team prepares for battle. They board their vehicles and set out on their mission, leading to the events seen at the beginning of the film. The narrative then shifts back to the present, where Kovalev is about to activate his deadly weapon. However, the blast unexpectedly leaves everyone alive, including Kovalev. At that moment, Zero arrives, aiming his gun at Kovalev. Soon after, the Phoenix team regroups, demanding an explanation. Modus informs them that Kovalev's weapon emitted a sonic wave rather than an explosive blast. However, the danger is far from over. Modus instructs the team to retrieve data from the weapon's server before it can be fully activated. Kovalev then issues a chilling warning. Everyone in the room is in imminent danger. The Prime Minister's military forces are on their way, and the sonic wave is about to trigger a catastrophic chain reaction. His words prove true as Modus and the Phoenix team, including Kovalev himself, suddenly collapse. Frantically, the soldiers interrogate one of Kovalev's weapon engineers, asking how they can prevent disaster. The engineer grimly admits that there is no way to stop what is coming. Soon after, everyone exposed to the wave succumbs. Only a few Phoenix members remain. Zero quickly urged the group to leave before the Prime Minister's militants arrived. However, Angel refused to leave without ensuring their fallen comrades were properly buried. Tensions flared between them as they argued about what to do. Nova stepped in and suggested that Brandon be the one to make the final decision. After considering the situation, Brandon explained that they had to retrieve the server data from the sophisticated weapon. If they failed, the Prime Minister would continue the weapon's development, potentially destroying entire cities, or even countries, in just a few minutes. Brandon then ordered Zero and Nova to head to the lab, while the others carried the bodies of their fallen teammates to the tunnel for a proper burial. Inside the lab, Nova explained that the weapon was already 70% complete, and the previous explosion had been just a small-scale test. Several countries, including North Korea, had provided the raw materials for the bomb. Zero asked if they could transport the entire server, but Nova said it would be difficult without more vehicles. Brandon finally decided to upload all the server data to a satellite, ensuring that the United Nations could access it. He reasoned that dismantling the facility would make it harder to prevent others from building the same weapon. The team gathered to discuss Brandon's plan. Angel expressed concern about how long the upload would take and how quickly the Prime Minister's forces were closing in. Still, Brandon insisted that it was a risk worth taking. Once the plan was agreed upon, Brandon assigned tasks. Nova would oversee the server upload, while the others set up ammunition traps and strategic positions. Nova tried to contact some trusted allies via satellite, but he was doubtful they could help in time. 30 minutes later, the upload had reached only 50%. Brandon handed Nova his cell phone, explaining that the first call would trigger a device in the corridor, and the second would detonate a bomb in the lab. As each team member took their positions, Hara, who was still grieving the death of her brother, vowed to fight with everything she had for revenge. Moments later, the Prime Minister's militant soldiers arrived, breaking through the barricades. Brandon's team fought back fiercely, neutralizing dozens of enemy soldiers. In the chaos, Hara ran out of ammunition and was ordered to retreat. However, she became trapped by an enemy soldier and fell into the water. Surrounded by more soldiers, Hera quickly claimed they were targeting the wrong person. In a desperate move, she wielded her axe and fought her way through, taking down the attackers. Meanwhile, Zandy, Angel, and Zero faced their own siege and ran out of ammo. Brandon, dropping from a rooftop just in time, ordered them to return to the base while he held off the enemy. In another confrontation, Angel found herself locked in a furious duel with an enemy soldier, ultimately resulting in her death. Brandon and Zero then crossed paths and split up. Zero sent Brandon to the kitchen, while he entered an office to engage a group of hostile soldiers. However, Brandon soon faced a group of 7 hostile soldiers. Feeling overwhelmed, Nova made the difficult choice to activate the bombs hidden in the hallway. Afterward, Nova told the team that the server upload was complete and advised them to escape and regroup at the designated rendezvous point. The scene shifted to Hara, who found herself surrounded by enemies just as the lights went out. She activated her flashlight, only to be attacked by multiple soldiers. Tragically, Hara was killed. Brandon urged the remaining troops to continue toward the rendezvous point. As he fled, gunfire hit him, but Zero rushed to his side, assuring him that everything was under control. At another location, someone fired multiple shots at Nova, but Zandy and Angel swiftly eliminated the attackers. Soon, all of Brandon's surviving troops had gathered at the rendezvous point. Nova handed Brandon his phone, instructing him to make the second call to detonate the bombs in the lab. Sadly, Nova died from his injuries before Brandon could make the call. With no time to waste, Brandon ordered the troops to prepare for the blast. As the enemy forces closed in, Brandon instructed the remaining troops to retreat to the tunnel, determined to stop the invaders. However, Zero refused to leave, telling Brandon that it was he who had persuaded him to join this mission, and he resolved to stay by his side. Brandon then told Angel and Zandy to leave, stressing the urgency of getting the server data to the United Nations. Brandon and Zero advanced into an open field, methodically eliminating enemy soldiers one by one until they ran out of ammunition and found themselves under heavy siege. Just when things seemed bleak, a group of reinforcements arrived, eliminating the hostile forces. It turned out that Nova had already contacted these reinforcements. The team hurried to check on Nova and discovered that he was still alive. After the battle, Brandon and Zero made plans to return to America. Zandy and Angel expressed their gratitude for their assistance. As the mission concluded, they all knew their work wasn't over, but they had made significant progress in preventing a global catastrophe. End of the movie. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments, like the video, and stay tuned for more recaps.